So hello and welcome back everybody to another edition of the Quantum Compass and a very happy Gregorian New Year to you. It is indeed technically somehow 2025. My name is Davyd. I'm one of your navigators for today.
And I'm Bella Alvaran. Hi.
All right, everybody. So we've had some interesting research time putting this particular episode together, and got to be honest, it wasn't one of the easiest episodes, and we're going to explain a little bit about why we think that is, about the changing nature of the energy frequencies that we're in, and which particular star charts or navigational points we're looking at for this next wave spell, because we are now moving into the wave spell of the blue magnetic night that is going to run from the 6th of January until the 18th of January, right, Bella?
That's correct.
So, as always, we're going to put the emphasis into another wonderful presentation that Bella has put together. And yeah, let's get into this.
Right. So for those of you that are still celebrating the Gregorian calendar, happy 2025. Honestly, I felt the shift with the new moon on the 30th. There was some kind of recalibration moment at that point of a new moon going into 2025. But more than anything, we wanted to add a little bit more information when it comes to the importance of switching the idea of the Gregorian calendar to a spiral way of measuring time.
Right. And we understand that perhaps for many people coming into the Mayan time technology, that it can be a lot to understand. But really, what we're looking at here is not necessarily how to work with Mayan time, but also really the understanding that the fractal spiral universal time that the rest of the universe works by actually was knocked off kilter here in our reality, the earthly realms as we understand it somehow. And we've been living under really a false sense of time and reality ever since, right, Bella?
Yeah, and we do go deeper into that in the Mayan Time and Magic course. But for those of you that haven't done the course, it's just emphasizing here with this presentation that linear time was actually imposed upon humanity to constrain us millennia ago. And we followed some of the Babylonian times and the Gregorian times and everything that happened around the time of the Romans. But right now, there is a sensation of us breaking free from that. We're releasing the linear illusions. More and more people are being able to be in the present, to follow the cycles of time in a different way. And it's part of what we want to achieve with this quantum compass, as all of these old time structures are crumbling. So we need to have something that is more in accordance to the frequency of the universe.
Right, exactly. And we're going to be sharing a little bit later on about our new QPW flying school. But the reason I'm mentioning that now is that we employ all of the same methodologies and many other tools that we're going to be sharing in that particular course to understand how we as individuals can help repair time by going inwards and reflecting on our own soul's journey through spiral time. And in doing so, as Bella has already said, in the Mayan Time and Magic, we encountered many points in our linear history where we can see that splices have been put together to create a sense of a linear history that doesn't really fit very well. And I want to share also here, Bella, something that I've shared with you a lot, is this vision I keep seeing of the spiral of time looking like two DNA strands. And at one particular point, and we think that this is largely linked to something on one timeline that we can perceive as Atlantis, there was an explosion or a collision that somehow fragmented the real universal time into this kind of very fragmented linear time, which then became much, much easier for, we can say, nefarious forces to control, manipulate, and even to enslave us human beings here on planet Earth. But this is a big story that we've been unfolding and looking at. It's also part of our own ongoing investigation, which we're going to go even deeper into today, looking at the as above, so below sidereal astrology, as opposed to the 23-degree difference tropical Western mundane astrology, and trying to make sense of why they both might have a story to tell, but not necessarily the same one.
And it's very important to understand that it is now the time to reclaim our boundless eternal nature.
Yes.
And this is part of what we can achieve by switching, because whoever controls our mind, and it could be done through time and different systems like political systems, financial systems, whatever it is, controls our reality. We are in charge of creating our reality, but because of all the systems in place, we keep on following those other narratives. And so the way they created created this linear time is a way of regulating the perception of the when. So you get told when you should eat, when you have to work, and your time becomes money rather than time is art or time is freedom. It becomes time is money. And then by scheduling our existence, they keep us fixated in the past, which brings a lot of sadness, regrets, trauma, grief, and also in the future, which brings anxiety and worry and many other things. But our power is in being in the now.
I remember a very pertinent phrase that I've repeated once or twice since, but a druid, chief druid, in fact, of Britain, once spoke at an event of mine, and he said, I've met many, many people who have said to me, when I get to this point, it's all going to be okay. And he said, I never met anybody that actually got to that point. And the point that he was making really was about what Bella has just said, which is that when we're constantly thinking about when I have this much money or when I have this job or when I have that, then I'm going to be happy. And because we're always putting that happiness marker somewhere into the linear future, it's always ahead of us. And so we never really get to that place, which is what this druid was talking about, and which resonated with me strongly. It was probably a decade or more ago now. And we've sort of been enslaved into that way of thinking, right, Bella? And what that does is actually give us the disservice of not being present in the present moment, as we have talked a lot about with plants like dandelion, who then open up time in a different way. And I think one of the most obvious ways that we don't really adhere to this is when it comes to preparing our food. So, you know, in the Western world, I saw this for many, many years in London, that most people would grab their food at a metro supermarket on the way home. They'd wang it in the microwave 15 minutes, and the whole process of food preparation would take literally 15 minutes from the moment they bought in a metro supermarket to being on their plate in front of them. No energy in the food, no energy put into it, microwave cooked. So literally not really nourishing us in the way that we want. Now, that's not to have a pop at people who live in that way. I also lived like that for a while when I was in London, because it's part of the energy of the capitalist slave system that keeps us in that mindset, telling us you don't have time for food because you should be at work, doing more work, being more productive, putting money into your pension plan for some imaginable or unimaginable date in the future where we may or may not give it back to you. All of these things really are designed to keep us out of the present moment. And
out of sync.
Out of sync. And if we think that time is art, or we can say that art is cooking or art is art, and we stop thinking about time as being a way to make money and to accumulate, which is what we've been programmed to, then we have the possibility that every day is an endless adventure where we get to do whatever we want. But in order to do that, we also have to make some serious adjustments in our mentality, and most of all, in the lifestyle that we're leading, and also, most of all, how much we are reliant on the old paradigm matrix. Because if we're still relying on that and we're wanting to break free, we have a little bit of a paradox there, which we're going to have to confront at some point, right, Bella?
Right. And with the Mayan and Soul King calendar, and looking at the sidereal astrology, we want to connect to that source within, to learn to trust our inner guidance, and reconnect with this more freedom that we can have, and reconnect with that impulse of creation. What do you want to create? Start dreaming, start reconnecting with what you really love to do. Because it's all about the life's quality, not about a date in the future, but it's about, or just a number. It's about life's quality, which is eternally unfolding all the time. So what you get to experience by working with these calendars, you get to experience timelessness as we expand into 5D. And that's more and more what is happening in our reality now. More and more people are being able to tap into 5D. And then we reconnect with that spark of great spirit, and then everything changes. It's like a cosmic domino effect of liberation.
Right, and we've said this before, and we share a lot more about it in the Mayan Time and Magic, but when you understand that the linear time that we are living under was really instituted by Julius Caesar, the famous Roman Empire, very connected in the stellar nations to the serpent, as we understand, and then we look forward into 1582, when the Vatican, that other bastion of human freedom and sovereignty, as we understand, decided to introduce the Gregorian calendar. We understand that those 2 points were points of manipulation, but when we understand that Julius Caesar introduced it for taxation purposes, we start to get an understanding of why we're still living in that fractal 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, you work to live. which is not at all what the universe wants to prescribe to us, right, Bella?
Right. So our invitation, as we're receiving this huge amount of awakening codes, is to feel cradled in the flow, to welcome infinite possibilities, to reconnect to our creative power more and more, to our dreams, to our passion, to our hobbies. And then manifestation comes much quicker. It's a more instant flow once you're connected to that. Because you've removed the density of 3D, especially if you've been doing your inner work and shadow work. And then we can become these higher dimensional beings that we are. We just need to be able to remove those layers that don't allow us to do it freely. And when you tap into this new way of living, new way of experiencing reality, there is no worry or urgency. It's more about being present and fluid in a fluid reality of our infinite nature.
Wow, I love it. But it's true. And this is what we at QPW, myself and Bella, and many of our tribe members have been experiencing through working with the initiations that Spirit gave us to work through, working with Mayan time and magic, working with the 13 steps of creation, otherwise known as the ascension ladder. And where are these things? Well, they're not up there. It's not literally a ladder in the garden up into the clouds, although perhaps in meditation we might see that. But really what we're doing is going inwards, and the ladder is here. It's our DNA. And once we start repairing our DNA with consciousness and awareness ourselves, not by going to a doctor and going through some procedure that they tell us that they're going to fix our DNA. The best way we can do it is for us to go in and start communicating with, lo and behold, actually ourselves. Crazy as that might sound.
So this is more of what we want to do, reclaim our sovereignty from artificial time so that we can walk into new earth fearless. Remove any limitations, limiting beliefs, and programming that we've had. I know many of you have identified it, but it needs action. And it's not a very complicated thing. It's more about putting your conscious awareness into what is it that is blocking me or keeping the density in my life so that I can remove it. So there are such a huge amount of new light waves and codes coming through the sun and light to awaken our deeper truths within. And this is being a catalyzer for all of these collective transformation. And as our success is resonating throughout the cosmos, everything that we're doing here is actually being expanded throughout the cosmos. So that is the big thing.
It is the big thing, and you can probably tell that we're kind of excited about it. We've been tracking this energy all of this year. We have shared before, and we still wholeheartedly concur with this idea that we actually shifted into the new Earth timeline on the April 8th eclipse. And I know many of you out there have messaged us and said that you concur with this and agree, and we've been feeling it. And so the question then becomes well, why is it not manifesting in our external world? Well, if only 5% of us are actually in the creative space, and would love to point everyone here, although I'm sure many of you have already watched it, to a recent video we did called We Are the Creators. That wasn't just a fancy piece of clickbait titling that we did there. We actually mean that, because we understand that every single thought and word and deed that we are participating in right now has even more power and more resonance than it did before, because the old matrix anti-grid network has been removed. But we're so programmed and so full of PTSD that we're still living in that paradigm, even though it's been removed. So we want to reinforce continually, as we're going to, I think, keep doing, right, Bella, is that we need to be 100% mindful all of the time. Where is your mind going? Where is your attention going? What are your intentions every morning when you wake up? Are you thinking about what's going to happen at the end of the year when this and this and that happens? Or are you thinking about what you're going to do immediately after you've got up? Are you going to go gardening? Are you going to make a beautiful breakfast? Are you going to be present with yourself? Maybe do some yoga or Pilates. Do something good for yourself, but do it with full conscious awareness. It isn't a bridge to the next thing that you're going to do.
And this is a great wave spell to do so, because it's called the Blue Night wave spell. So let's start with the Solkin, and it has 4 colors, as I've mentioned before, 4 directions. So every day there is a different color, and it's connected to a different element. So if it's a red day, for example, it's a day you can connect with the element of fire and the east direction. You can do this on a daily basis and recalibrate your compass. If it's a white glyph day, then you can connect with the element of the wind. If it's a blue day, and this wave spell is a blue one, you can connect with transformation, but also with the element of water and your emotions. And if it's a yellow glyph day, then you can connect with the element of earth.
That's right. So perhaps, Bella, we can just take this moment here also just to reflect on all of these different layers that we've been giving all of you, our wonderful audience out there, for the last year and a half or more, maybe, and
Mhm.
understanding the way we've tried to share this information is viewing them as internal dials, like a bit like a time traveling space machine.
Mhm.
And we can use every single day as part of a much bigger fractal plan or vision that we have. But in the meantime, each day we'll have one of these glyphs that repeats in a 4-day cycle, but with the overall energy of a wave spell that's within the overall energy of a castle, that's within the overall energy of a Zolkin. And so it progresses. Now, the bigger the time scale, probably the bigger the project that it's going to be suited to. But if we bring it back down to each and every day, each day has its own beautiful adventure energy glyph that we can work with. And so then everything becomes important.
And that's the beauty of this Solkin, this calendar. It's not about a number like the
Yeah.
Gregorian, it's about an energy that we can connect with. So we're following also the bigger layer, which is the third moon calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And we are it's 13 moons of exactly 28 days each. And we're coming out of this rhythmic moon of equality, which we've talked about in the previous shows. And we're going into the next one, which starts on January the 10th through February the 6th. And this is the resonant moon of attunement. It's all about our alignment. It's about being able to realign our chakras, realign our energy, and attune ourselves. The totem is this beautiful monkey. It's the totem animal of this whole moon of 28 days. And the energy of this totem is about being restless and very sociable. It's about sparking the creativity and use it to achieve our goals. It's a very happy totem, flexible, in constant search for knowledge, very curious, good event organizer. So if you're planning to organize or you're dreaming about putting something together, this is a good moon to do so. It's also very smart, very intelligent. And it's reminding us to always be close to our inner child energy. Remember that spark. Practical jokes are part of this energy, good-hearted trickery, excellent motivators, those that have this totem, very good at constructive criticism. Emotionally expressive and good at releasing their pain. So this is a good time to release any of these painful memories or traumas we still have hanging there. Let's not kick the can down the road anymore. This is the time to let it go, and you can do it with the energy of this totem. This energy is also inviting us to live entirely in the moment. So during this moon, let's stay centered in love and curiosity, which will guide us into greater alignment with our soul's blueprint.
Right, so lots to reflect on even just with this. So we have a whole month, a whole 28 lunar days working with the energy of the monkey, lots of monkey business, but that's also very much about our inner child. And as we've been sharing in heaven on earth, we've been connecting to various different inner child spirits and totems and energies that allow us to see the world through the eyes of a child, which is to say, not in some immature way, but with awe and imagination. And
with the transparency and beauty of the child.
of the child, exactly. And this is the resonant tone of number 7, right, which is about attunement. So we can use this 28 days to attune to living in the moment with the energy of the monkey, the inner child.
Good. And so we're still in the castle, the yellow castle. Let's remember we started the Solkin with the red castle, then we went to the white, then the blue, and now we're in the yellow one, the third wave spell of the yellow castle. The yellow is the element of fire, and it's also, of earth, and it's also inviting us to harvest, the ripening process. So let's see here where it is on the Solkin. We start at kin 183 through kin 195. We'll have 3 galactic activation portals on day 2, on day 7, and on day 10. 3 whole galactic portals.
So we've got 3 gap days, and I think that what we've started to observe, and we want to share again for those of you who haven't perhaps clocked this, that every single day is important. But when we have gap days, we also now pay more attention to which tone they're coming in on. So for example, in this wave spell, we can see that the first gap day comes on a day 2. So that means that we're going to have a day of challenge, but a day where we can go to the galactic center and ask for help, ask for information, download information to help us catalyze the challenges. We don't want to get stuck in the polarization. That's not the point of a day 2. The point is to allow the challenges to come to us, to observe them from a more neutral, we can say 5D or above perspective, and then say, okay, how am I going to work with this energy and transform it into fuel so that I can power the rest of the wave spell? So then we have other gap days, 189 and 192, and we can do the same process by tuning to the tone or the energy of that day in the wave spell and working with the galactic activation portal to assist us with those particular days' activities.
Beautiful. And so these are the glyphs of the blue night, the 2 that I've highlighted there. And what are the qualities of these glyph, this archetype, which is called Akval? It's all about reconnecting to our dreams and to be more active in our dream space, reconnecting to our intuition, thinking of a new dawn. So start thinking about it. It's actually quite good that it's synchronized with 2025, the beginning of a year, because many people are thinking about new intentions, new things. And it's a good glyph and a good wave spell to reconnect with abundance, also with the sanctuary of inner self. To do more lucid dreaming and exploration, which we're going to talk about with the plants that we're bringing to this wave spell.
Right.
Also a good moment for stillness, to reconnecting with the mystery, with becoming a conscious dreamer. It also connects in our body with our heart and the internal organs. So you can also do meditations like mindfulness, where you visualize your organs, you talk to your body, you talk to your cells. If you have a pain somewhere or you have an issue with your body, start connecting consciously with these parts of the body.
How amazing. So this is, as Bella said, this is, we are in, I think, the 4th castle of the year, right? And we're about to finish and go into the 5th one, which is Ether, which is very much the conglomeration of all of the other 4 castles. But as we have been sharing through Heaven on Earth, it's also working with the 4 different elements. And when we enter into this internal process by using these Mayan time waves, we can start to reorientate everything within ourselves, our perception of time, our inner elementals, our energy body. And in doing so, we also start to repair and activate our DNA, which is really, really important, because our DNA is the keys to our multidimensional selves. But if we are just sat back hoping that the TV or the devices are going to present us with some sort of cue as to something happening, then I think we could be sat here a long time, which is why we are always saying the best way to do this is to take the time for yourself, empower yourself with each day, and make each day something special. Every day is a special opportunity. Every time we go to sleep, we cross the threshold back to our multidimensional self, and each morning we wake up, we're literally not the same person that went to sleep. And when we start to understand this, we'll start to understand why every moment in this 3rd dimensional reality is a blessing that we can work with. It's a special gift that we were all given as part of the invitation to sign up to this crazy experiment.
Right. So, and as with every wave spell, there is shadow to be worked with here. So in this case is having a very subjective perspective, or believing that we always have like the only truth.
Yeah.
Also situations like sadness, depression, loneliness, self-judgment, fear of change, or doubting your intuition. Sometimes we get given the signs, and your body, your gut talks to you on what feels right or what doesn't feel right, and still we don't pay attention. So that's part of the shadow work to be done here. So how do we transform all of this? Obviously being more still, reconnecting with our dreams, have a more objective perspective, like a 5D perspective of what situations are coming up. Start the process of redeeming materialism. Accept the blessings of plenitude. There is abundance. There is abundance of water. There is abundance of resources. There is abundance of energy. But it's about us realigning and attuning ourselves so that those things manifest in our life. And a very good way of doing this is being generous. The more that we give, the more that we get back. In this wave spell, we also want to integrate our shadow processes. We've done so much work, and now is the point of integration of all of these lessons that we have had, and do that pilgrimage deep within and start weaving our dream.
Right. This is so important. I was just making some notes there on what you said, Bella. And You know, these shadow sides, they're not easy to work with, but they are really, really important. And this particular wave spell is going to give us the opportunity to look at all of these places where we're still somewhat engaging in these activities, being self-depreciating, judging oneself, probably in doing so, judging others as well, and most of all, being afraid of change. One of the things that I have observed over the last 3 to 4 years especially is that we are already, or we can perceive in the new earth wave spell, but many people are afraid of it. They want to be there, but they're actually afraid of it. They're afraid of the steps that need to take them there, most of which is letting go of the things that we've been programmed to accept, that we have to accept. So the fear of change is an understandable one, but when we're so deeply entrenched, I don't want things to change because I've only just learned how to use the VHS recorder, never mind cryptocurrencies. Well, then we're actually blocking ourselves from potentially stepping into a future timeline where things are being made easier for us. Now, we can say through the propaganda media goggle boxes that we've been programmed with all kinds of fears. So I would suggest if you're still receiving your information and finding it fearful from whatever sources you're listening from, whether it's the old mainstream or even the alternative media, perhaps don't listen to that source anymore if it's not serving you, right?
Good. And as usual, the questions for each single day. And remembering that the very first day of this wave spell is about dreaming. What dream do you want to bring into this wave spell? You could see a manifestation by day 10 if you're fully attuned and aligned, or by day 13, we can transcend that.
Right, let's just take a moment here also to really reiterate that point. Day one of every wave spell is a magnetic tone. And when we understand that whatever state of mind we're in that day, however much attention we're paying to the energy of the day is what we're going to magnetize towards ourselves. Now, each and every day is important, as we've said before, but I would suggest that the first day of every wave spell is uber important because of this reason. Because if we're in a mindless state or worse, in lower frequency emotional turmoil, then the chances are we're going to be attracting more of the things that we don't want. And this wave spell particularly has these very powerful shadow sides, which are very present right now in the collective noosphere. And as we've shared before, if we are continually reprogramming ourselves with old timeline imperatives, we're going to keep carrying those forwards into the new Earth timeline, which is actually going to have the effect of stopping not just ourselves, but also the collective from progressing. So every time we take personal responsibility, we're actually in service to the collective. Even though that sounds crazy, this is the bifurcation point that we're observing, is that those who are in service to self, particularly around financial abundance, we can say that's a classic one. This is mine and I don't want to share it. Well, there's so much quantum wealth in the universe that by the time we realize that by being in service to the collective, we don't need to be in service to self, well, then it's game over. And all of these other shadow mechanisms from the old world won't exist anymore. But we have to make some really, really strong steps, and we have to start letting go of the system that not only supported us, we think, but also entrapped us. So powerful, powerful motifs to work with, right, Bella?
Yeah, great. So talking about the wave spell and the new waves that are coming, we see that it's a time for profound renewal. There's been so much activity from the sun, solar winds, coronal mass ejections. They're bathing the earth with plasma charged light. And this plasma delivers nutrients and very vital information for our evolutionary step at this point. So these waves coming from the sun are bringing activations and new codes to our energy body, which then interact with our physical body. So it's normal that some people are feeling headaches. They're talking about ringing in the ears, very surreal or vivid dreams, sinus pressure, stomach unease. And we're not saying here, don't see your doctor if you're feeling any symptoms, but many of those geomagnetic storms weaken the Earth's magnetic shield, and that's mirrored in our energetic bodies as well. So our energetic and physical bodies are going through this recalibration with the incoming light. So it's a very important moment of rebirth for everybody, for all of us, for the Earth, and where all of these illusions that we've been talking about when it comes to time and systems are dissolving very rapidly.
Right, and I think this is a really important point, Bella, because sometimes many of us have experienced these symptoms and not always been sure what they are. And sometimes many people express, I'm receiving too much solar flare energy, I'm having all of these issues. And we're like, I'm not experiencing any of that. And in other days, I do experience something. But what this has done for us, which we would like to share with you, is that it invites us into meditational space, reflecting, is this really the effect of the sun, or was it because I spent 5 hours at a concert yesterday and haven't done an energy clearing on my system yet, and maybe picked up some external junk and gunk that isn't serving me? Because all of that can give us headaches, can make us feel nauseous, and can make us feel tired. Now, we're not saying that those are the only reasons. There are a plethora of reasons, and this is where we suggest that checking in internally will give you the answers you need, rather than listening to even us or other video channels telling you what it might be. We're just offering you some possibilities, but don't accept somebody else's opinion as to what is going on for you. Don't even accept a doctor's opinion necessarily. Go inwards and investigate yourself. And then if you really feel out of shape, then of course, go to a doctor or a GP or whatever.
So yeah, this is all to say, our DNA is getting upgraded. Our energetic field is more sensitive, more permeable. So we're feeling more and more of the incoming energies. So it's a very important time to have some moments of being still during the day, even if it's 5-10 minutes if you're still working. But have those check-in moments.
As we always say, the best thing to do is go and find a beautiful tree. Hopefully you have one in your garden or close by, and sit underneath, and just, as Bella says, keep it empty for 15 minutes. Don't allow yourself into mental. This is the other side of the monkey, right? Is you can get the monkey mind. So we have to be careful that we don't get too much into our heads and start extrapolating answers that really have no basis in reality other than the programming that we've received. So with that in mind, we started looking at the astrology for this Wavespell, and we realized in the last quantum compass that we put out, we didn't include the new moon, which afterwards we reflected on. We were like, why didn't we include that? Normally it's the first thing we look at. And when we sat and looked at it, we both felt, right, Bella, that somehow it escaped our awareness because it wasn't the energy that was really what we needed to download and share. So this gave us even more impetus to reinvestigate which astrological system we're using. So for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to give both the sidereal and the Western, and give some viewpoints on why we found this particular Wavespell to be very, very fluid and difficult to pin down one way or the other. Normally there's always a pattern or a gestalt that presents itself to both of us in the research for these episodes, and we're like, that's what Spirit wants to share. I've got to be honest, this was one of the more difficult ones, and personally, I think the reason for that is we're in a very, very fluid moment. Some of us have been working a lot with heaven on earth in the energy of water, and good old Saturn has had a terrible time, I would say, in Pisces, readjusting himself because he's no longer in control. Saturn likes to be in control because he is Father Time. But as time breaks down in the way that he was probably programmed to give to us in some way, he's also having to let go of his reign of time. And perhaps he's going to ascend into a different place in the universe. Who knows?
Yeah, and the way we're approaching the sidereal and the tropical astrology is the sidereal being a reflection more of the soul level and our connection to the stars, and the tropical more of the mundane.
Right, so if we can understand that this perhaps is a way to use both of these, and as Bella said, the sidereal is more what is going on at the energy level with our soul, what our soul or our higher self is wanting to talk to us, and the Western astrology perhaps is more of a visual movie play out, slightly offset by the 23, 24 degrees as we've talked about before. Then we can understand that perhaps what we're seeing with this tropical astrology is actually the likely play out in the 3D of what we've already seen in the sidereal, in the as above, so below system. So hopefully that makes sense. This is where we're at in our understanding. Would love to hear people's either confirmation of that, validation, or repudiation of that. Experiences of that. So we're going to give this particular astrological overview with all of those disclaimers. And again, always saying to everybody, please do the internal investigations, do your research. And if you have come up with something that you think is valuable to this conversation that we're always inviting all of you in, please share in the comments. And whilst you're doing that, please hit like and subscribe as well in our ongoing war of words with YouTube over algorithms. So just to slide that one in. So let's have a quick look at the astrological highlights. I have put them here, I think, in terms of where they are in the Western astrology. And this Wavespell kicks off with a couple of mercurial transits, both squares. The first one kicks off squaring Neptune, which is at 2722 of Pisces. And we'd have to look at the charts to remember exactly where Mercury is. Let's have a quick look there, Bella. So we have Mercury here at 27 degrees of Sagittarius there, squaring across to Neptune. So this energy, the way that we're looking at it in the mundane, tends to, in my impression, say we might be receiving messages, communication through the veil. Neptune very much represents the veil, illusion, delusion, but also perhaps medications and substances. It's in Pisces, so it's very, very watery. A lot of emotion attached to all of this, and perhaps we need to be ready for greater revelations about some of the things that have happened to us, not just in the last 4 years, although that in its own fractal microwave really tells the story of what's happened to us over the last several millennia, I think. So that kicks off the Wavespell, I would say, very much asking us to be in a place to receive information, but to rise above the emotional triggers that may come with it. And then this very much does apply to the Western tropical astrology, because as we'll see in a minute, this is going to have an effect with the nodes which are about to change sign. But regardless of which system they're in, Mercury is going to be squaring the nodes. And I think that when Mercury is squaring the nodes like this, we're being asked to not go into the past or into the future, but to hold both of them in the present moment and understand that the present moment is actually the culmination of the past and the future happening simultaneously. And if we can connect to that energy, we can bring it down into ourselves and we can start to learn more about ourselves. Mercury is the messenger, and perhaps he has a message for us personally about our shared and individual history and destiny. So then, as I said, the moons shift signs in Western tropical astrology, moving into the Pisces Virgo axis. So very interestingly, this represents the end, at least in the system of the Western astrology, which is why we are making a decision to now start much more strongly shifting to working predominantly with the sidereal astrology. We're still having some difficulties finding software that really maps out all the things we want to look for. Some of the other systems are a little clunky trying to work out the differences. So we might go through a process. And if anyone out there wants to bring some new software that brings all of this stuff together in one place, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have an app that joins all of the things that we talk about in Quantum Compass together into one easy to use app. But maybe that's for the quantum future. We then have a full moon in Cancer, which interestingly is in Cancer, either system you're using. We'll come to that in a minute. And then we have Mars coming into action. Of course, Mars very much in play as we're recording this episode. The Mars-Pluto opposition, which still has a little bit of wiggle room to play out into the next few months, is in full effect. Do you have anything you wish to say about that right now?
That it's the second one. There are three. One was on November the 3rd. The next one was on January the 3rd.
The 3rd, we just literally had it.
And there's another one coming in April. I think it's April 26th. So it's 3 points of pressure, of tension, of what else needs to be transformed. And like we can't move forward too much because there is a transformation factor coming from Pluto.
Right, and you know, it's not always necessarily the easiest thing to decode how some of these astrological transits are happening for us, particularly given what we've just shared, and that what we might be experiencing with Mars opposing Pluto in the 3D through the Western tropical placements is actually a reflection of something that might have already happened a little while ago in the energy realms. So just to put that in there too, but Mars then opposes the Sun on January the 15th before Venus conjuncts Saturn on January the 18th. These are quite powerful moments, and perhaps when we get into some of the charts in a minute, we'll explore some of them more deeply.
Did you want to add anything else?
Well, just that we've pulled up the charts here for the first day of the Wavespell. It is the same day that Mercury squares Neptune. We've also included a few more asteroid friends that we've encountered, which we'll be getting into in a little more detail in the minute. We can see that we've included here at 28 degrees of Scorpio, we have the asteroid Sophia. We also have the asteroid Merlin. And in kind of cohort and conjunction with those, we also found an asteroid, Yeshua, also very much of the Christo consciousness energy here currently at 25 degrees of Capricorn. And we also then brought in Magdalena. These are very much counterpart energies. Merlin, Magdalena, Sophia, Yeshua, very much the embodiment of the balanced masculine and feminine energies, the Christ consciousness. But getting ahead of ourselves a little bit there, you'll also see that we've included two very watery beings, Poseidon and Selassie, both of which we've just been working with in the water element of the heaven on earth, where we go into all of these different astrological placements and star chart markers within our own charts to understand how is our watery nature, or we've also worked with fire and air and done the same process. So there are many things that we can work with. Again, we've had to use the Western astrology system here because the other system that we're working with for sidereal doesn't currently have that capacity.
Yeah, and also so that you have a comparison on the energies and start working with two different dimensions,
Right.
more of a 5D and being the sidereal, and the other one being more of a 3D experience.
So perhaps if we can just take a second. So we see here in the sidereal that Mercury is, where is Mercury?
It's just leaving a fucus.
Just leaving a fucus, which is really interesting. So it's at 1 degree or 2 degrees of Sagittarius, and it's squaring. Let's see if we can find Neptune here. Neptune is over here. So it's at, so we can see this is where things get a little complicated because they're not always matching to the same degree like they would in the equilateral Western system. So it's not at 1 degree, but it's currently, I'd say, what is this, about 5, 10, must be about 18, 19 degrees of Aquarius. So this is why we're having a few little, we can say, logistical challenges trying to work these things out. But as we move through this, we'll probably get better at reading these charts. But we're introducing this to give you the idea of how we can read things differently, because this squaring has quite a different emphasis to the one that we've just talked about, right? You want to say anything, Bella, on that note about Mercury entering a fucus? We looked at a fucus a lot in the last, sorry, just leaving a fucus and entering Sagittarius.
Right. So what it feels like and for those of you that have been following our journey through integrating the Serpents constellation, more than a fucus is actually integrating the Serpents constellation because it still connects us to the center of the galaxy. I feel that what Mercury was doing there was making us go deeper into the lower nodes of anything that needed to be released and brought to the surface. And then with all of this information, we go into the next part of the process. And it's perfect that it's happening on the Wavespell of the Blue Night.
Right, exactly. So the other major astrological transit, of course, that caught our eye is the full moon. And this period was somewhat marked by a lack of oomph astrology. Now, one of the reasons that we've been guided to start looking at the sidereal as opposed to the Western was that many of us, probably us included, right, Bella, were seeing that throughout September, October, November, December, there was going to be a series of catastrophic events that would engulf the world. Well, I think to most people's eyes, those haven't really happened. And there are definitely astral energy reasons why those things have not occurred. They were taken off the table by off-planet help and collective conscious unity consciousness from those of us here on the planet. But at the same time, there are still full moons and there are still new moons, and they still have a potency to them. So when we were looking at this full moon in Cancer, what we can see from the day of the 13th of January, that the moon is incredibly active. The moon, in fact, is having a conversation with many other players. So this is as the day unfolds. This is local time here in our own neighborhood. So you want to adjust according to where you are in the world. But at the beginning of the day, the moon trines the sun. It then sextiles Uranus in the afternoon. It then goes into the full moon opposition later in the afternoon at 16:26 here. It then later in the evening conjuncts Mars and also trines Neptune. So the trines and the sextiles, of course, very harmonious, beneficial energies, we can say. But really and truly, it's all beneficial, whether it's an opposition, a conjunction, a trine, a sextile, each one offering its own potential energy puzzle for us to work with. So we haven't decoded exactly what the moon is going to have a conversation with all of these different beings about, but it's very interesting that on this one particular day that all of these angles come to exactitude.
Yeah, super active, the whole sign of Cancer. Let's remember that the US sun is in the Cancer sign. And I feel that there will be a lot of activity around these days, especially in the US, because we're getting close to a very political, like inauguration, political things going on. So I feel that there is a buildup of energy coming for this day.
Right, and of course we still have this Mars-Pluto opposition, but what's come into our awareness is the interaction between the sun and Yeshua and Pluto. And after a very Christ consciousness Christmas, perhaps certainly from my perspective, the most Christo consciousness Christmas I've ever experienced, certainly in the inner meditational world, we've decided to start tracking this energy much more strongly. And so when we looked for the counterparts in the asteroid or in the planets, we found four versions to each of the male and the female in slightly different personifications, but it's the same energy, the same beings, the same frequency manifesting in different timelines in slightly different personas. But when you tune into the frequencies, you realize that it's really the same overarching archetypal being that is trying to communicate with us. And so there is this very interesting dance, which we're going to explore a little bit more in a minute, which is when the sun goes through a Yeshua Kazemi. Now, it doesn't actually happen in this wave spell. It happens immediately at the beginning of the next wave spell, but we're putting it into your awareness because this is a chance for us to start connecting with the Christ consciousness, whether it's the masculine through Yeshua or the feminine through Sophia or Magdalene, or in the Merlin is also an aspect of Yeshua. And when we bring those into harmony within ourselves, we're starting to access the sixth dimensional realm of the Christ consciousness, which is what wants to happen at this point. It's got nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with dusty old tomes from biblical periods. This is a frequency that we can start to track within ourselves, and not only track by doing the DNA repair work, which we've talked about so much, we can start to access. And when we access that, many of the other things that we've been distracted by are going to start to fall away.
And we'd love to hear what your experience was for Christmas and the connection to this energy. It was very vivid. It was very strong within our home and the surroundings. So we'd love to hear what happened for you in terms of the Christ consciousness connection.
Right, and we just want to say that neither of us are religious at all in this aspect. Probably spent most of our life avoiding churches if we can, or not feeling welcome in them because of alternative frequencies in our field. So we're just saying that as a disclaimer that we're not dyed-in-the-wool Christian folks, although no disrespect to any of those people either, because they've probably been living with that frequency their whole life. And I think this is a point, Bella, after what we saw with some of the interesting news around what the Pope was up to at the Vatican, we can see that maybe we are starting to put a lot more attention on the organization of religion and starting to see that maybe it's going to disintegrate in different ways. And maybe we're going to find a true spirituality within ourselves.
Hot topic.
Hot topic.
So the same full moon seen from the 13 signs sidereal astrology, which let's remember includes the 13 signs, with the 13 being Ophiuchus, and is how we see the sky. When we go outside, we see the stars exactly as they are in the sidereal. So the sun for this full moon is going to be in Sagittarius, and is going to be more a suggestion of expansiveness, of seeing the bigger picture, a higher perspective, being more open, bringing new beliefs, freedom and adventure. So it's a whole different way of looking at things if we're going to the sidereal. The moon is going to be in Cancer, and is talking about security, protection, emotional connection with others and with our environment, focusing more in nurturing and caring. And Pluto here is starting a new cycle in Capricorn, if we look at the sidereal.
Right, and so what was interesting for me when I was looking at this was that we have this Moon-Mars conjunction, and we have a full moon, but weirdly the Mars-Sun opposition doesn't kick in for another couple of days, and that is, of course, because Mars is in retrograde. So even though they're very, very close on both the 13th and I think the 15th, we've got this kind of little dance that goes on, which I think is important, and particularly when we were exploring the Mars-Pluto energy within our own lives, it wasn't as obvious as perhaps the astrology wanted to make it out. We had to look at how our Mars and Pluto were being reacted in our natal charts, also in our own symmetry charts, to understand that there was a more hidden aspect to this energy that needed to be brought to the surface for resolution, which is often what an opposition will do. It'll bring, it's a bit like a piece of elastic being pulled tight. It's like, are you going to pop and let things go and release, or are you going to keep on holding on tightly with ever more tension involved, which often normally leads to some sort of trigger outburst, which of course is a day 2 activity, right?
Did you have anything else?
No, only really what we've just shared there, and also perhaps encouraging everybody to start mapping the transits as we've already laid out. They will, of course, be happening regardless of which system you're using, so you can read them in a different way.
And so we've been talking about integrating the serpent lineages, bringing more healing, bringing more wisdom, bringing the hidden 13. The Christ consciousness is also connected to Sophia and Yeshua, these two frequencies that bring also wisdom and healing. If we think of Sophia as the embodiment of wisdom, and Yeshua as showing the connection and how we can evolve to be in 5D or even higher embodiments of higher dimensions.
Right. So a lot of our journey with these two beautiful beings, this conjoined energy also, which is different. So each of these beings has their own frequency in their own right, each one with their own set of teachings, very much embodying the upper notes of the male and female serpent energies, the male being the teacher, the female being the healer, but also carrying the energies of teacher and healer within themselves. So both as individual sovereign beings, but when they came together and conjoined their energy, they created something different, which is the Christ consciousness frequency. So that is really what can happen for each and every one of us within ourselves. And we're going to, I think, continue to look at this in a lot more detail throughout 2025.
Yeah, and it could be that you connect to these avatars and these frequencies or not. But more than anything, we feel this is the time as we move forward in this evolution, in this ascension process, that is the moment to have clarity of purpose and a deeper recognition of unity, that we're all interconnected. And whatever I do for myself affects the collective. If I heal my wounds, then there is a release for the whole collective as well. And as I mentioned before, there are so many solar storms and cosmic downloads coming, and they are gifts from the higher realms that to help us expand and reevaluate the old beliefs, including the concept of time and even astrology and the way we've dealt with money and education and medical systems. All of those things are here to be re-examined so that we can dream about what would be the best way that those things could play out in New Earth for me, for my family, for my community. So this is the point where we want to claim our next level of empowerment, because we are co-creators, and we keep on banging that drum because it is so. It's just that they have been always in control of what we create. We've been helping construct a reality that is not for our highest good, but we can start now changing all of this. We do have the power to do so.
Right. And, when we start to do this, we start to encounter these beings, not necessarily in the way that we've been given from scriptures, from somebody somewhere. We're not even necessarily sure where, but we know that they're often not contemporary. We start to view these beings more like perhaps how we're starting to view ourselves, which is cosmic human time travelers who came to the earthly realm with a mission at some point. And when we start to connect to them in that way, we also access that part of ourselves. And so many things, as Zach told us during this period, are up for grabs, not least of all the dissolution of the old religious structures and a new form, or we can say the original blueprint form of spirituality, which of course is not connected in any way to somebody else's scriptures or their interpretation. Spirituality is something that's unique to each and every one of us, but has these universal frequencies that we can tap into.
So we want to invite you to embrace hope in this new cycle and have that deep sense of knowing that we are going into a much better world, and welcome this new era with compassion and creativity, and put all of your dreams into it, because you're always going to dream about what's best for you and what's best for your community, so that we need to do more of that to start seeing it.
Right, so maybe we can just go back a couple of slides here to one of the charts, Bella, just to see how this relates. Yeah, maybe we can use this one for a second. So what's interesting here is that in the research for this and looking into the asteroids, Yeshua and Sophia, but also Merlin and Magdalena, do you want to say anything about the connection between Sophia and Magdalene, or just the universal feminine energies?
So the Sophia energy is an energy that is everywhere, and it helps create worlds. And Magdalene is one of the avatars or embodiments of that energy, which came to be the equal and opposite of Jeshua at the time, when they saw that the world was again in chaos, and the systems were being instituted, big taxes and the Romans and everything that was going on in Egypt. So they came to break the system as well at that time.
Exactly. And so what's interesting when we look at this is that we can see that, and I checked this backwards and forwards throughout most of this year, maybe on a larger timescale it starts to slip, but throughout this period, Yeshua and Sophia are in a 3.5 degree orb sextile. which means that they're very much supporting each other. Their energies through the astrological realms are supporting each other. And here we can see that Sophia is actually at 0 degrees and 52 minutes in the Western tropical system and has just entered Sagittarius, the realm of the spiritual adventurer, which is what we were talking about, perhaps as a more relevant imperative for us all to be working with, rather than perhaps revisiting what we perceive as the top-down hierarchy of the Capricorn energy. Also, what we can see here is that she's opposing another powerful goddess energy, that of Sedna, which is also about of letting go and of rebirth, all of which we've just covered actually in the heaven and earth water element. We've also included here Merlin and Magdalene. Now, Magdalene, as Bella just said, is another kind of avatar personification of Sophia, and Merlin is perhaps another personification of Yeshua. Perhaps maybe by the time we get to the Merlin, he's a little bit fallen, maybe has picked up a few bad habits, or maybe he's just got some bad press. We don't know because we weren't there, but what we can say is that when we tap into the energies of Merlin in the Avalon world of Britain, and we start to factor in that we understand that Yeshua and Magdalene probably left the Middle East after the resurrection, after Jesus had shared his multidimensional teachings from his journey across the veil with his own Jedi school, with his disciples. They then left the Middle East, probably because they needed to, or because they perceived they had other missions elsewhere, and they eventually find themselves in Britain. And there is a whole story connecting the Grail, which is the Magdalene Yeshua energy, to Britain. So in some
the Essenes.
From the Essenes, exactly. So really and truly, these beings are in the same lineages of universal Pegasus messengers, we can say. And so I find it interesting that Merlin and Magdalene are having a conversation at this point, because probably it's the same as Yeshua and Sophia having a conversation. This one might suggest they have something to work out, though. So even divine spirits sometimes perhaps need to have a conversation, maybe when Mars is opposing Pluto, maybe to resolve old karmic timelines, maybe soul traumas, because we of course don't exist just in one plane right now. We exist in multiple planes all at once. So everything that comes up, even with a Mars opposition with Pluto, which is very scorpionic, very transformational, particularly with Mars in retro, is really asking us to take a step back and reflect on what may have been coming up, and then put it into this kind of finer level of consciousness that is the Christo consciousness.
And part of their initiations as Yeshua and Magdalene was understanding the nature of time, how time is not linear. They had initiations on how to work with the elementals, which is part of what we're doing with heaven on earth as well. They learn about how to be multidimensional, and a whole series of initiations in Egypt, in India, in the Himalayas, in Tibet, and even with the Essenes. So the journey is quite fascinating. Really.
It's really fascinating, and we invite you all to do your own research into this, and perhaps to think just of Yeshua and Sophia or Magdalene or even Merlin in different ways, but to start thinking about everything in different ways, particularly if there seems to be a lot of negative propaganda, because normally those are written by somebody else. So anyway, with all of that in mind, we wanted to introduce the plants for this wave spell, and they are familiar ones. We've definitely covered these before. But this is the wave spell of the dream, and so we figured we'd include two plants that are very much of dreaming. One is for perhaps daydreaming, the Santa Maria, the beautiful mother plant of cannabis, that very, very much embodies actually the energy of Sophia and Magdalene, of the goddess in general, of the healer, and also another plant that does much the same but is more attenuated to the night dream space, which is our good old friend Lady Mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris.
So with Mugwort, you could put a few branches under your pillow and connect with your lucid dreaming, or if you have a question you want to put in your dreams, and then try to get the downloads and then wake up and see. You could also have a tea with Mugwort before you go to bed and ask those questions to be presented to you in your dreams, or if you just want more clarity of what you want moving forward.
Right, and Mugwort is also a great protector of the dream space, which we can also say really is somehow the astral space, and particularly when we're cycling through the layers of the unconscious, or the lower astral planes, the things that we can't see. This plant is very, very good at illuminating them for us and bringing them into our awareness. Anyone who's accompanied us on any Mugwort journeys or immersions, or even worked with this plant by themselves, will know that this plant is very good at illuminating the shadow, and this can happen in the dream space, but it's also a guardian that will help help give us a safe space, which is why she's also a womb guardian, because in the womb space, the place of creativity, the place of stillness, the place of dream inception or dream incubation. This is another dream incubation plant. We can set intentions, and if we're able to lucid dream or vivid dream, then we can actually work in that space in the astral planes while we're asleep.
Do you want to share a little bit about your experience with the salves with cannabis on your feet?
Yeah, so we've included the plant here, and as usual, we're going to put a full disclaimer because we understand this plant still has some legality issues in some parts of the world, bizarre as that seems, and not the scope of today's conversation. But in general, most places now in the world will be selling some type of hemp or CBD product. And what I can say is that after the operation that I had earlier this year to help fix my broken feet, I worked very strongly with a CBD salve on my ankles, which first of all allowed me to heal a lot quicker. It definitely had a big effect.
First the arnica, which was
The
really
arnica,
good.
yes.
I made you an arnica, and then it was the CBD one.
Then it was the CBD. So the arnica salve, as many of you will know, and as our friend Peter's talked about before, is very good at reducing bruising and inflammation, but also trauma.
Yeah.
It's very good at removing the trauma. But then what really happened was through using the CBD salve on my feet was I actually had the experience of being able to communicate directly with my conscious quantum awareness directly into my feet. And I've shared this a little bit, but not so much. During the period after the operation, particularly after the April 8th eclipse, I had some very, very powerful experiences by actually seeing in my inner awareness the bones in my fractured heels actually coming back together again. And not only being a witness to it, but actually helping to direct that. So these plants can be taken into the system in many, many different ways as teas. Both of these plants can also be initiated with fire magic, i.e. to smoke, but they can also be put into salves. We can rub mugwort salve on our third eye, our temples before we go to sleep. We can make a mugwort tea. We can make an essence. That's also really powerful. We can make an oil or a tincture. And we can work with these two plants. The Santa Maria plant, the cannabis, is much better for daydreaming, which is another way of saying meditational exploration on the inner realms, but obviously not from a sleep place, but from a waking place.
Maybe this is a good segue to talk about
I like that. So we have just launched the much awaited course, the QPW Flying School, which is going to be led by myself in a series of 4 introductory workshops, also in a live format initially. I'm going to be sharing with everybody many of the practices that I've utilized myself for most of my life, but very much over the last 15 years, working with sacred plant medicines, particularly Santa Maria or cannabis as it's more often known, and also the sacred fungi, the psilocybin mushroom. Now, of course, we're putting very strong disclaimers around all of these, and we'll be putting them into the course too, due to all of the reasons that I know our very mature audience will understand. This is not medicine for everybody, but in certain doses, whether large, small, or micro, they can have the very, very powerful possibility to connect us into a lot of the stuff that we have shared and understand ourselves, because they help us to reconnect our DNA back to our multidimensional selves. And when we look around and we see many people completely switched off even to the idea that they're multidimensional beings, they could perhaps all do a little bit of that CBD salve that I had, which allowed me to understand that I had a direct effect on the healing of my feet. Powerful stuff, really. When we start to absorb what this information means to us, we can understand that we can not only heal ourselves consciously, but we can also start to break down reality, start to communicate with other beings, other avatars, other frequencies, all of which I'm going to be sharing in the Flying School, which starts on the very powerful skywalking day of January the 16th. There will be a workshop released roughly every 13 days in preparation for the incoming Wavespells, but this course can be taken at any point. It's very, very affordable. We have a special limited early bird offer right now for the first 15 people that sign up. It's just at $150 rather than the normal price of $208. And this will be running for a couple of months, working with many, many different imperatives, including how to get the best out of working with wave spells, how to set your space, what type of medicine to use, the dosage, scene and setting, working with intentions, how to navigate through the astral planes, even the higher dimensions of 5, 6, 7, 8th dimensional intelligence and consciousness, how to deal with beings that you might meet, friend or foe, good or bad energies, how can you tell the difference, how to navigate difficult situations if they come up for you, but most of all, at the end of it, how to integrate the experiences, not as some head candy experience for the weekend, but actually as something you take forward into your life and you implement with all the things that myself and Bella share, both here on Quantum Compass and in our courses, right, Bella?
So there is a full description of this course in our website. If you can go to quantumplanet.world, it's called Flying School and the courses.
So yes, we're just again sharing here what we're currently working through, and this is a course that you can join at any time. Very, very powerful stuff, particularly when you work in conjunction with what we're going to be sharing in the flying school, going into ourselves, experiencing our inner elemental beings. We all carry the energies of air, fire, water, earth, and ether within us. And of course we do, because we are the creators. And so if we are the creators, we need to understand what are the building blocks of creation. And through doing this course, you will get to connect to your own inner elements, learn how to read them in your astrological birth charts, in your cosmological charts, and many other different devices that we share, but also how to communicate with different beings that represent these energies, these elemental energies, air gods and goddesses, water goddesses we had a lot of fun with. There were a lot of those. And so what we're offering are guides and guardians, but also inner orientation mechanisms that allow you to navigate the unfolding of the new Earth terrain, but also the letting go of the old Earth paradigm.
And the first 4 modules have been released. It's a total of 6 modules, but you can join at any point. We're still having some live calls for these courses. We have talked about the navigation guide to quantum consciousness. It's also available in our platform. It's 13 different chapters on how to reconnect with different dimensions and to integrate the multidimensionality within ourselves too, and how to use a Wavespell. This is the best way to learn how to use a Wavespell.
Right. I just want to say again, this is one of the most powerful processes I've ever been involved in. Bella really channeled most of the information that came through in the navigation guide to quantum consciousness, put together incredibly in-depth presentations, each one probably on average about 2 hours, each one exploring the energies of each of the 13 steps, each of the tones of a wave spell. And when you combine this also with some of the other material on QPW and also what we're going to be sharing in the flying school, you actually have this inner compass with which to work. It really does what it says on the tin, a navigation guide to quantum consciousness. And if you feel that you have signed up for the New Earth Quantum Consciousness, then I would suggest that this is a very, very important part of that process and is a very, very significant initiation, probably much like the ones that Yeshua and Sophia took.
I talked during each one of the chapters about sacred geometry and the importance of sacred geometry in creating our reality as well. So that's one of the key points.
Right, really, really powerful stuff. And again, each of the chapters is worthy of its own meditational time. And as we always say, everything like Bella, take your time with the material, let it empower you, take it into your life and start implementing it immediately. We have, and it's radically changed our life.
Thank you for the testimonials for everybody that has been completing this course. Also, the Mayan Time and Magic course still available on our website. And
yeah, we've been having a lot of interesting experiences with those of you who've signed up to activate the Grail within. And of course, we did all of this before we really connected with the Christo consciousness on Christmas. We worked a lot with the crew constellation energy, as we've shared in Quantum Compasses prior to this one. Everything we share with you guys is important. It's not just some interesting little anecdote that we came across. We're working with very conscious energy frequencies, and we're then transmitting them into this powerful 2-part process, first with myself and then with Bella, where we clear the field, look for any remaining traumas that shouldn't be there, any attachments or energy frequencies that no longer serve us. Also with the opportunity to connect to the higher self level between ourselves and you as the participant or client. And then Bella?
And then I go into the biodecoding of any trauma or emotional healing that needs to be done. And then we do the Galactic Signature session, which is activating your archetypes within the Mayan cosmology and your medicine wheel.
Right, again, really, really powerful stuff. And from the moment that Bella activated my Cosmic Skywalker glyph, my life has never really been the same since, but has enabled all of this to happen. has enabled us to share with you our own explorations. Even just this, the Christ consciousness is very much connected to my own glyph. And so sharing this information is part of my life's purpose. So hopefully you've enjoyed all of this. If you've made it this far, you will be awarded a blue DNA emoticon. So please ask for those. We've been having a lot of fun with all of you. We do all of this stuff with a lot of humor. We try to have fun with it. We share what we think is important. We don't say it's the final word on anything. We never say that. And we always say go away and investigate and research. And please always feel the need to comment. Some of you are putting incredible comments which are really hitting home. Thank you to some of you. You know who you are. You're really giving us a lot to think about. And we love the comments. We love the feedback. Please keep that coming. And if you like what we do, please do share it with other people that might benefit.
In Lakesh, I'm another you.
In Lakesh, everybody. We'll see you all again very soon for another Quantum Compass. Bye for now.